chop off.
Yeah, I did the recording.
And I will start mine as well. So, yeah. Okay,
I
good
will
evening,
still
guys.
remind you guys to start recording.
Yeah, we're there. Yeah, we've done it. We've remembered. Now I'll tell someone to remind me. Good evening, guys. Good evening, everyone. Good evening to Matthew, who's our guest speaker, and also to my good friend, Mr. Gray, who's looking straight at me. And you'll be hearing from Wayne and Matthew a little bit later. So welcome to 2021. What is 2021 going to give us? Who knows? We will find out. I've been doing quite a bit over the last few weeks about people's mindset, because I have to say, particularly even mine this morning was a bit dodgy. My mindset this morning, because of the situation that we're in. There are people that are in business, in the property business, particularly the people that we speak to on a regular basis, that we see on a regular basis, the people that we train, mentor and coach on a regular basis, that are frustrated at the moment with what they can and what they can't do. I've just got one slide that I'm going to do as a presentation for you shortly, just to let you know where I think that 2021 is going to go. So happy new year, if it's not too late to say that, and to all of you, absolutely fantastic. Hope you had a great festive period, whatever you did. Hope you've all stayed safe and well, and that we are going to have a good year, because we have to make the best of what we've got, really. So what I'm going to do is very, very quickly, can we start with you, Anurag? 2 minutes, please, just to let everyone know that doesn't know you, right? Who you are and what you do, and why you're part of the team on the National Property Networks.
Okay, Anurag Jan. Predominantly, I was in IT, and for last 16 years in property market, have a portfolio in 3 countries. I joined Barry and David because I learned a lot, and I want to give it back to everybody else. I'm also a business coach and executive coach, helping people come up with the proper numbers and understand their requirement and match their strategy to their end goals. I had a very good session with a few of you, one-to-one, and I'm sure they will be more than happy to tell you how I can contribute to your success. That's me.
David?
Hi. Yeah, so I'm part of the team. I actually helped train Barry, so many years ago now. So there we go.
So if I'm rubbish, it's his fault.
I learned him all he knows. That's what I would say. Yeah. And I've been in property now for 17 years, and I've got a portfolio which includes just about everything. So, but particularly HMOs. I started in HMOs, started with student HMOs in Swansea and Portsmouth, still have HMOs there as well. So that's my sort of claim to fame. And I've also been training for a number of years as well. So ever since 2004, I've trained people in the basics and in HMOs in property.
I was trying to tot up this morning, David, between us, how many people we have trained in the length of time that we've been training.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And I'm thinking that I'm probably on about 15,000, right? Yeah. So you must be way past me.
Well, yeah, I would think
classes
so.
were a lot smaller when I started.
Yeah. So I mean, on average, I guess probably it's been around about. Well, I'm not sure I could do the maths that quick in my head, but 2005 I started. The average class size was 60. I was probably on 20 times a year or something like that. So it's probably around about, well, it's probably easily double where you are, yeah. Barry. I've personally mentored over 300 people nationally, and internationally another 60 or 70.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, the business itself is absolutely phenomenal. And
so to the new people, guys, that you are, whatever we do here, you are in quite serious hands. We do know what we are going to do, and I'm going to tell you a little bit later on about how we're going to move things forward and change the format a little bit slightly for this year, and so that we're going to start to put some training, not just have guest speakers, but also start to put some training for half an hour into each one of the events going forward. So before we do that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to first of all pass my desk fan over to my wife, because she's boiling at the side of me.
Thank you.
And I'm going to share my screen, and I've got one slide presentation. And I've been thinking about this. I've been hearing, as a result of a couple of Facebook posts I've put out over the last couple of weeks about people and their mindset. And I cannot begin to tell you how many people have said, I've got a problem with my mindset. Yeah. Not least of all because we've all been in lockdown for the last, well, it seems like about 10 years, but since the beginning of March last year. So I just wanted to show you one slide that I've prepared literally just before we started, or David and I prepared just before we started, that I think will put things in perspective in terms of where you are in 2021. And I do hope when Matt from Shawbrooks and Wayne from DMI come on, they're not going to disagree with anything that I've put on these slides. If you do, keep it to yourself, guys, let me know. I'm sure you won't. So can just, I have from the other guys, can we see that slide? Are we okay?
Yeah, we are good.
Okay, so today, guys, I heard this quote, and I can't remember where I heard it from, but I thought it was a brilliant quote, which inspired me to put this thing together this morning. Although I didn't do it until just before we came on. Right, the future is not cancelled. Yeah, the future is not cancelled. 2021, whatever happens, will still happen. Yeah. So what I wanted to do is take a couple of moments to let you know what will happen, whatever we do, whatever COVID or the world brings us. Yeah, what will happen in 2021? Because we know this, right? Biggest thing as far as we're concerned as property investors, people will still need somewhere to live. Yeah, that's a given. Yeah, people will still need somewhere to live. Property will still continue to be bought and sold regardless of the stamp duty holiday coming to an end, whether it comes to an end at the beginning of March, at the beginning of April, the beginning of December, it doesn't matter. Yeah, it will, even after it's come to an end, property will still be bought and sold. Fact. Property will still continue to be bought and sold regardless of COVID. Yeah, we've done it all the way through COVID, albeit for a few weeks right at the beginning, but property will still continue to be bought and sold regardless of COVID. Property will still continue to be bought and sold regardless of the economic climate. It doesn't matter what's happening in the economic climate, people will still want to move house. It's a given. The next thing, property will still continue to be bought and sold regardless of whether house prices go up or house prices go down. It doesn't matter. People will still buy property. Yeah. In a rising market or a depressed market, people will still buy and sell properties. The main thing for this evening, and I'm sure that both Wayne and Matt, when they come on, will reiterate this, lenders will still be lending to people that want to buy residential and investment properties. Because if lenders don't lend, lenders have not got a business. Yeah. So what, any stuff that may have heard, any fake news you may have heard about lenders are going to stop lending. If they stop lending, ladies and gentlemen, right, they are out of business, period. Yeah. So lenders will still lend to people that want to buy residential and investment properties. And here's the biggest thing for all of you that I want to reiterate more than anything, right? For people that have a true and full belief in themselves, people that have a true and full belief in themselves, to grow their property business, success is imminent and inevitable. Yeah, it will happen. The one thing that will stop you is you. All the things that I've just said above there, right, is going to happen whether you're involved in property or not, whether you're buying and selling property, whether you're training, whether you're lending, whether you're an estate agent, it doesn't matter. Those things will still happen with or without you. Yeah. The one thing that you must be aware of is the fact that in terms of your success in your property business, yeah, your future is in your hands, no one else's. Because people like Anuraj and David and myself and the other trainers and mentors that you and coaches that you'll meet along the way, we will do whatever we can to get you to where you want to be, give you the knowledge, the incentive, the motivation to get you where you want to be. But if you think to yourself, it's not going to work because of COVID or the stamp duty or whatever, yeah, no, please think positively going forward. Are we going to still have challenges? Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, we still have challenges now. Even at our level, we still have challenges. Everybody is going to have challenges, right? It's how you cope with those challenges that makes you successful or a failure. And the only time that you fail is when you stop trying. So please, the biggest message I wanted to get across to everyone this evening is we're at the beginning of the new year-ish. Yeah, it's our first event of the new year. 2021, it's not cancelled, it's still going ahead. And all of the things on there are going to happen. Yeah, we know that's going to happen regardless. So I hope that was of some use to you, and that in the main that you're going to totally agree with what I just said there, because I don't think any of that is controversial. So on that note, I said that lenders will still continue to lend irrespective of what happens. So I can't quite see Matt at the moment. I've lost him, right? But Matt, David, could you make Matt a co-host, please? Can you do it from there, David?
I'm trying, I can't.
You can't. All right. Tell you what, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Matt, bear with me. Let me find you.
That's okay. Don't worry.
Whilst Barry is doing that, there was a long question on HMOs, and I will do my best to answer that very, very quickly. And it's about charging council tax on individual rooms. Two things need to happen. Firstly, it's got to contain at least an ensuite. And the second thing is that if you've materially changed the house from a home to an HMO, in other words, you've put en suites in the downstairs lounge and front room or lounge or dining room, then it's not then a home, it's now definitely an HMO, and that will cause an issue when it comes to council tax. Not all councils are charging council tax on rooms with en suites. So let me try and sort of explain that. If you've got a property where downstairs you've still got a lounge and a dining room and it doesn't contain an ensuite, and you've only got en suites upstairs, it's very, very difficult for them to argue that it is no longer a home. and that it's just an HMO. And what we're finding is that if you put en suites absolutely everywhere in every room, you've materially changed the home to an HMO. And then, and also, if they deem now that you have materially changed the structure of the property, which you have, because you've now gone from having perhaps 1 or 2 bathrooms to having 7 or 8 bathrooms, or however many bedrooms you've got, then the council can come along and start to charge council tax. Not all councils are doing it, but I certainly know that they're starting to do this. I mean, Burton-on-Trent is one area where they've done it. There's loads. What you need to do, don't blame the council, because it is not the council that charges council tax. I mean, they take the money, but it is it's the valuation office agency, the VOA, that decide whether or not you're going to do that. What councils very often do is to make that choice, that they are going to charge the council tax. So the VOA say that it can be done. There's an allowance for it to be done. What I would suggest is, and again, this has to be tested. There's no final test for this, is that various councils are saying, well, people will start to drop out of doing HMOs and they need all the rooms that they can get. Now, during COVID, that's obviously been a little bit sticky, but you know, we will come out of COVID. There's no doubt about that. But just the question, I suppose, is when. So what I would suggest that you do is don't put en suites in downstairs rooms where you're changing it from a lounge and a dining room. I'd put a shared bathroom downstairs. One of the things that I've done in a couple of HMOs is to have all my bathrooms shared, so they're not en suite. So I've got one HMO, which is an 8-bedroomed HMO, and I've got 8 shared bathrooms. They're tiny, and then they're next door to each room, but the door leads out into the main route of escape. And they came along and said, well, we can't do that because they're not en suite. So that's probably the way to overcome it. So just be careful of your design and make sure you haven't stopped it from being a home. So all homes have a lounge and possibly a dining room. They certainly have a lounge. So don't en suite everywhere. Once you've done that, you leave yourself open to the council tax charge being made. Now, it's not just an en suite. It could be that you've actually put a kitchenette in, and that would also then classify as being only HMO stuff. Now, you obviously got to be a little bit careful about how you do that. So communal spaces would stop that from happening, but just don't turn the properties don't turn the rooms downstairs into ensuite rooms unless you only want it to be an HMO. The other thing that I would do is contact the council, and I would ask the following question: what's your council tax policy on HMOs? Don't tell them you've got them, just say, if I were to have HMOs, what's your council tax policy on HMOs? But of course, you only have to have a change of officer, and all of that could change. So just be aware, that's where it is. But there's no hard and fast rule. I don't know anybody that's got away with it. I don't know anybody that's got away with it at all. So you just have to be careful. Of course, a lot of councils at the moment want a bit of the reddies, so they're all short of money. So you know they will come around to charging it at some point.
Okay.
So that's it. I'll answer the other questions on as they come through. So and I'll just put something into the chat box. All right.
Okay. Thank you, David. So without further ado, the next few minutes, 40-ish. Matt, no pressure. I'm going to hand you over to Matthew Taylor, who is a senior development manager with business development manager with Shawbrooks Bank, and he's going to tell you all about Shawbrooks and what they're doing at the moment. And I already know excitedly that they've got some new stuff up and coming. So Matt, over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, all. Thanks ever so much. Very appreciate that introduction and invite. Just some housekeeping before we proceed, guys. Obviously, we are a regulated bank, and as such, our regulators deem that any material that that we sort of present to you guys is constitutes a financial promotion. So there is a short disclaimer on the screen at the moment, just confirming that the idea of the content of the presentation isn't constituted as advice and shouldn't be relied upon as such. It's obviously Shawbrooks' view of the market, and customers, as you well know, should seek their own independent advice from a qualified advisor such as Wayne at DMI. So yeah, a little bit of housekeeping. On a personal note, hopefully the 7-month-old won't wake up either, and I'm not expecting a fire alarm, being as I'm in the loft room at the minute. So yeah, it'd be unfortunate if that happened. So yeah, just to introduce myself sort of more formally. So yeah, it's Matt Taylor. I think my mum and people when I'm in trouble call me Matthew, so we'll go with Matt Taylor, a Regional Development Manager for Shawbrooks Bank. Just to explain my role, so predominantly in the Shawbrooks Property Division, we accept applications via mortgage brokers, qualified and appropriate mortgage advisors. We've got strategic partners, again, such as Wayne at DMI, that we help support and help them place business and obviously fund deals for clients and investors such as yourself. So I've been with the bank since the start of lockdown 1.0. So I joined in April, but not new to the team. I've worked with some of them for many years before, and I've got around sort of 15 years experience in and around specialist lending, commercial, buy-to-lets especially. Not quite as much as experience as David and Barry, but getting there, catching them up slowly. So yeah, today I'd just like to talk to you about the opportunities that Shawbrooks can provide in helping you guys with your investment strategies. So first of all, who are Shawbrooks Bank? Well, we're committed to lending to landlords, property professionals, SMEs and UK investors. This does cover a wide raft of clients. We can be doing a first-time landlord right up to an experienced portfolio that's got sort of 30-40 million pounds worth of property in the background. So we do cover quite a wide sort of variance of investor. But I think the key point from our perspective is we rely on accredited broker partners who've got expertise, they've got in-depth knowledge to refer cases to us, to help package cases for us and present inquiries to us that we can then execute with funding. Our cases are underwritten manually, so we do obviously use credit agencies, but crucially we don't have credit scoring systems. We do, as I say, look at each individual case on its own merits, and I'll talk about that in more detail shortly. But the focus for us is on delivering transparency in terms of fees and costs, delivering the appropriate outcome that you guys are looking for, and we've received multiple awards doing that along the way. Just to pick up on Barry's point, I completely agree with everything that's on there. I'll put that straight out there. I think you're absolutely right. If 2020 taught us anything, it was that the property market is very, very resilient. One thing that didn't diminish was investor appetite. I can't go into the specific commercials, but Shawbrooks lent more in 2020 than we did in any other year. Now, some of that will be down to some competition pulling back. We acknowledge, but the main point is we're very much on that same page. There will be opportunity out there for investors, whichever way the economy goes, however long it takes sort of COVID to resolve itself. And we're here to support and stayed open throughout the whole sort of pandemic system. We had to adapt, don't get me wrong. We had to use AVMs. We had to call on our solicitor partners and valuer partners to help with the adaptations to the business, but stayed open, stayed mobile and kept lending. And as I say, as a result, had a very successful year, all things considered. In terms of other developments, Barry touched on it. We've got some quite decent and exciting product ideas that we're pushing forward with. We did take the opportunity to also resource ourselves appropriately, and without being too crude about it, tapped up some staff from other lenders that we've admired their talent and sort of brought them on board as well. So yeah, the bank as a whole is positioned to lend. Barry's absolutely correct. Our investors won't make a return if they don't lend. You guys won't make a return if you don't buy and execute the strategies that you're looking for. I think it's just up to using your professional network, such as Barry, such as Wayne, David, and the team to pick your way through it and get to that end goal, and you know, keep your eyes on the prize. Really would be my commentary. So yeah, some of the opportunities and how we see the investor landscape at the minute. I think we've definitely seen, to pick out a few, a change of investor strategy. So again, you know, I'll talk about it more shortly, but our bread and butter stuff, or stuff that we do regular amounts of, would be take a property, convert it to a HMO, as David's been referring to. But we're obviously seeing more commercial market become available, so commercial property become available on the market. So we're seeing obviously a relaxation in planning rules as well during 2020. So that is making clients think about their investment strategy. And of course, none of us truly know the longer or medium to long term impact of COVID. Will it not only change us economically, but will it just change the dynamic of communities and societies? And you know, it's been sort of well publicised that market commentators have said, well, you know, the high street won't sort of die; it will evolve, it will become more of a social place, etc., etc. I've heard Barry say a number of times in the past as well, you know, Amazon-proof things. And again, I think that's you know, a very valid comment, which I have pinched from you, Barry, as well on a number of occasions, I'll acknowledge. So I think, yeah, we're seeing commercial property gain traction. We're starting to see you know, a shift in the way that people view properties and look at the opportunities available to them. And we're definitely seeing, and we certainly as a bank favour that more professional landlord model. You know, I don't like sort of phrases such as sort of dinner party landlord. That doesn't sit well with me. But I think what we're trying to say is we look now for a landlord strategy to look like, right, what's your vision now, but where do you want to go? Can we be part of that journey? And what team and expertise have you got around you to make sure that we get comfort when lending funds to you? We're also obviously seeing changes towards longer term lease agreements on residential property. So again, some landlords will have, of course, experienced void periods during COVID, whether it be people not needing to work away from home. You know, it's been well publicised that there's potentially been an exodus in London. I'm not too sure about that. It might just be a headline. I think we'll have to see how that one plays out. But you know, as landscapes change and local authority need housing, you know, that is obviously driving a different strategy from landlords as well. And again, one that Shawbrooks can accommodate, because we would certainly like to think that we've got our finger on the pulse and we understand landlord strategy. So I think the key sort of fundamentals from my perspective when trying to understand what a client needs from us and understand whether we can facilitate that funding. We've talked about it a lot already, and it's been mentioned a few times on this call in a reasonably short period of time, 30 minutes, but it's strategy. We need to understand you're at point A. In order to get to point B, C, and D, what do you need from us, really? So I think, you know, at the bank, we've got a heavy focus on speaking to the likes of Wayne and our broker partners to understand where you guys want to be, what the long-term strategy is. So how have you sourced a property? What has been your experience to date? Why do you feel the proposition that you're presenting to us is worthwhile, etc.? Yes, there's criteria and sort of hard facts that we'll need to look at, but also for us, the key to making individual decisions is the soft facts around the deal and ultimately understanding what you guys are trying to achieve. Once we understand that, we can then sort of move on to the next stage, which is, as I sort of call it, shaping the deal, and we can present to you again via Wayne what we're looking to offer you by way of the commercials and the funding and the terms. and how long, and what conditions we're going to imply on that, such as personal guarantees, and does there need to be leases in place and all that good stuff if we're looking at commercial, for example. And then we're quite prepared to issue you guys with appetite statements as well. So again, once we get to know you, now that might not be the first time we interact. That might be after 2 or 3 deals. So I was on a client's interview with a broker yesterday where they arrived and just did a sort of relatively modest bridge with us in November. That went well. All of a sudden, we've got another application in December for another property, and there's a refinance in January. That flags up on our system. We reach out to the broker and say, look, clearly your customer's got a strategy here. Should we get together? Should we get a call? And should we try and provide them with some assurances that we can meet the needs and provide funding? So we offer things like bridge to term. We've also got development arms. So we obviously help with development finance as well at the bank. So my core focus is on buy-to-let, commercial investment and bridging. But again, we've got the ability to sort of, I suppose, move you guys around the bank to help tailor that solution. We understand the structures that you guys are working with. So again, we want to work in coalition with your team. So that might be an accountant that's suggesting a company structure that fits around your current strategy. So have you got a trading business that's earning money? You need to do intercompany loans into SPVs, special purpose vehicles that you've set up to buy property in. And again, we understand that and we have the knowledge of that. And again, Wayne will know how to present deals to us so that we understand it and we get to a swift outcome. And again, I've talked about the team a lot. That sort of power of the team for me is key, especially if you're doing refurbishment, conversion projects as well. Once we get to understand that you've got the tradespeople around you, you've got the planning consultants, you've got the architects, and they know what you do, you can demonstrate to us you understand the end goals and what we're looking for. It tends to be a fairly easy passage to funding. So I think those are the sort of what is the lender looking at. And I just wanted to sort of share that with you, just so you guys understand where we're sort of coming from. So in terms of the drilling down into the actual product suite that we offer, we offer bridging finance. You'll be very familiar with this. That can be anything from a refurbishment in terms of a quick renovation of a property or refurbishment of a property. Selling that, we also obviously have a lot of clients that renovate them suitable for letting and retain them. The conversions, which we've already talked about. There's a case study on the next slide which refers to a 3-bedroom property converting it into a 6-bed HMO. We can again facilitate the funding for that. And then right up to the other end of the scale, which would be buying a vacant commercial unit, maybe altering the property, putting in for a planning gain, converting it into resi, all manner of things, right up to a developer who has finished a scheme, maybe needs to pull out some capital in advance of the property selling, or wants to give themselves more time to dispose and sell properties. So we've got a developer exit proposition as well, as we would call it, but essentially it's bridging finance. It's filling that gap from when the project reaches practical completion until you guys obviously sell and realise profits from a scheme. So I think moving on to a case study that we've got, it's a bridging finance inquiry for a HMO on our bridge to let scheme. So step one of the deal is the client came to us. They were purchasing a 3-bedroom residential property, 425, with the plan of converting to a 6-bed HMO. They outlined the schedule of works, which is really key and really important for us to understand the nature, the cost, and also convey to the valuer what the plan was. The client obviously presented to us, they're accepted in terms of creditworthiness and eligibility. So step one would be for us to fund the project. We could lend up to 75% of the purchase price. And I think that, again, and again, Wayne can verify this, but for my money, this is the feedback that we get. The key with us for bridging is we'll go up to the loan to values that clients are wanting. We'll use the valuations that clients are using. So some of you guys on the call, on the meeting, will be very familiar with seeing what we call a lump form valuation. There may be market values, there may be VP values or vacant possession, there may be 180-day valuations. But we're hitting the spot in terms of the valuations that we're using, but also the loan to value, so the gearing that we will go up to, and our rates are very, very competitive as well. As you can see there, we do offer a discount for existing customers as well, because we want that repeat business. And we want you guys, I suppose, ultimately saying, right, that was a good experience, let's go again and let's do the next one. So the valuer is armed with the current value. They provide us with a GDV, or a gross development value, essentially the after work costs. They will provide us with market rent after the conversion is complete, because again, the client's plan in this instance was to retain, and they'll also comment on the viability of works as well. So we will get that independent verification from a surveyor that says, yeah, what they're doing works, what the client doing it will work, and the costs seem in the right ballpark. So the conversion's complete. The 6-bed HMO has been created. The property is being let out, generating 51,600 per annum in gross rent, and the value has gone back out to re-inspect the property. So yeah, that works. It worked. They executed exactly what they said they were going to, Shawbrooks, and we now believe the current market value is 525. So the client will pull out up to 75% loan to value again. So they'll pull out 393,750. They'll obviously repay the bridge, and then that additional surplus capital will allow them to move on to the next scheme. So again, just one example, trying to bring to life how we execute investor strategies. I'll give you another example, which seems to be a common theme at the moment. So we've just approved a loan on a semi-commercial property. So it's retail below, which is currently vacant. And then we've got office space and storage space for the retail above. So the client's going to purchase that using a commercial bridge with us. They're going to put in for planning. They're experienced investors. They've already done some pre-planning work and been able to present that information to us. And then what will happen, because it's quite an extensive conversion that they're proposing to do, they're going to actually send that into the development team. The development team will lend them the finance, and then once the conversion is complete, that will then come back to us, and we will turn out, the client will retain that within their portfolio, pull out maximum leverage based on the rental income and the value, and they'll look for other opportunity. So again, I think echoing Barry's comments, lenders will lend. We will look for opportunities to lend, and if you present obviously the right deals to us and appropriate deals, we'll get them funded basically. So in terms of our buy-to-let proposition, which would be another string to our bow, as I mentioned earlier, we will assist a first-time buyer with their first purchase. We will go then right up to a portfolio of hundreds of properties if that's what clients want to do. Our loans for buy-to-lets range between 50,000 and 25 million. I believe our largest client owes us, individual client owes us slightly more than that, but yeah, we're up at that level. But we accommodate for pretty much everything in between. So again, why I would suggest we would be on Wayne's list for buy-to-lets would probably be HMOs, certainly. HMOs where you're looking to use an investment value. And I'll come back to that one shortly, because I'm sure that'll be quite a hot topic within the group. We'll also get used for student lets as well, whether it's a HMO that is just targeted at students, or whether it be your sort of more traditional purpose-built blocks. Again, just prior to Christmas, we funded a 72-bed student block up in Liverpool. So again, we're sort of right in the mix in terms of what investors are looking for. We touched on the housing provider leases as well. Again, we're perfectly au fait with that. I'm not going to go into the full details of the plannings and is a HMO license required and all that stuff. So I'm sure, again, David and Barry can pick that one up with you. But again, you know, we accept that the world is moving on. We accept that there isn't always going to be a 6 months AST for a lender to just tick a box and say, right, yep, we can see that signed up for. So again, we want to understand, you know, what clients are looking for and push forward with that. In terms of your HMOs, we don't have any limitations in terms of number of beds. As I said to you, we'll do large blocks, multi-unit blocks as well. We're seeing quite a few of those at the moment. So again, you know, you may have a rundown. There's one I'm thinking of in particular. Rundown apartment block. I think there's 12 in the block. The client's going to purchase. They're going to obtain vacant possession. It'll take them a little while to do that as the tenants move on. They'll refurbish. They'll come back to us and put that in their portfolio, and we'll lend up to 75%. We can look at expats. We can look at, as I said, complex limited company structures. So it doesn't have to be a special purpose vehicle with a standard industry code, a SIC code, as it's known as. We're quite comfortable lending to trading companies as well, and we're not onerous. We don't have to things like debentures and stuff like that. So again, a real raft of stuff that we can do, and you know, it might be appropriate for me to just sort of take some questions at the end, just to make sure that we're you know, I'm hitting the spot in terms of what you guys are looking for. But a brief sort of overview in terms of what we'll do on as we call it, residential terms of buy-to-lets. We can lend up to 30 years, interest only is available, fixed rates are available. We can lend to different lending entities. Portfolio lends are fine for us as well. So again, we can do that all on one facility, as opposed to having an individual mortgage facility on each individual property. And our appetite goes up to 75%, up to 25 million. So again, a lot to go at in that respect. So moving on to commercial investments, I think it's probably fair to say this is where we've seen the biggest shift, if you like, in the market in terms of lenders potentially pulling back. There's obviously stories out there of the high street lenders, sorry, being occupied with C-bills and bounce back loans and other stuff like that. From our perspective, we have taken the view that, look, as Barry said, there will be opportunity out there in commercial. I think we're not blasé to the fact that the high street and commercial property will change. I think we've probably all got live examples within our personal lives of where that will happen. Shawbrooks, for example, has got multiple sites across the country. None of us, 600 employees, none of us have been in an office since the first lockdown. So I'm not for 1 minute saying Shawbrooks shutting an office, by the way, because that wouldn't be my decision. That will be for somebody who's far higher up the food chain to decide. But you know, I do think that situation will probably be looked at. Again, my sort of partner, her work, have already said they're not going to renew their lease on their commercial office space. But again, as we talk about one door closing and another one opening, they have said though that they're looking for local hubs. So it's not the fact that they don't need commercial premises. It will just be a change of usage and a change of I suppose, commitment. Will they need as much space, or will they go for a sort of business hub model? I think, you know, you've only got to sort of walk up and down the high street to see some vacant units, but again, they'll get full as soon as the opportunities are right, as soon as the price is right, the rent's right for businesses, that they will go in there. And I think I heard an industry commentator say the other day, you've got quite an interesting sort of parallel at the minute in terms of we don't really know what's around the corner, although we know there's some economic turbulence. But you've probably got the country split, in my opinion, as well into two halves at the minute. The sort of economically active and then the economically, I suppose, inactive. Barry's point is you don't need to be inactive if you don't want to be. You know, it's very much your choice to drive on. But I think it's probably fair to say that most, if not everyone on this call, all 172 are sort of economically active. Hence the reason you're seeking information and support from the network. So, you know, in terms of commercial investments, that's where our focus lies at the moment. We have seen over recent years, and I'll be interested to see how this one plays out and continues, buy-to-let landlords progress into the semi-commercial and commercial space as well, to diversify their portfolio. You could argue in certain instances it may be more of a passive investment. If you've got an FRI lease in place for 5, 10, 15 years, it might not be as management intensive, but again, you know, you'll have to obviously offset that risk and reward, so to speak, and the time spent at a property. But in terms of the key fundamentals from our perspective, we can cater for between 2 and 25 years borrowing. Our loans start at 50k. That's another thing that we've seen from some lenders. They've upped their minimum loans, whether it's a resourcing move or whether it's a move to try and gain, I suppose, some perceived higher quality properties. But from our perspective, you know, if the deal works and the valuer confirms there's the demand for a property with regard to rental and saleability, we're happy to look at 50k upwards. We've got a complex commercial product as well, which, just to sort of tie in really with what I've been saying, that will allow us to facilitate commercial transactions for potentially vacant commercial property, for a multi-letting situation, for clients that tenants that are maybe on licenses. So again, you know, I sort of always envision a serviced office apartment block. So it might be an old 3 or 4 story house. It's been converted into offices, and you may have an accountant, I don't know, chiropractor, some mortgage broker on different levels, and that works very nicely for us. Equally as well, if you're an experienced commercial landlord, you can demonstrate to us that you've got affordability to cover a situation where there's been no rent coming in for a period of time, and you spot an opportunity to buy a vacant commercial property. We can accommodate that as well. And also as well, we talked about the conversion play on commercial and semi-commercial property. Again, if you come to us and say, look, I've spotted this property, I think it's right for a conversion into residential. However, there's a tenant in there, the tenant's got 3, 4, 5 years left. We can do you a sort of shorter term commercial loan, maybe a 5-year facility, whilst that lease is running down, and also you guys put in for planning. Of course, the default position on this stuff needs to be versatile. When looking at commercial assets, that's what an underwriter will look for. So again, we haven't turned our back on retail, we haven't turned our back on office space, because again, we understand that type of usage on a property will have will be quite varied and will give you variety as a landlord. I think the trickier properties tend to be the ones that aren't very versatile and are pretty one-dimensional. We've got no limit to the number of properties that a client can hold, and again, we talk about that existing customer discount. Once we understand your strategy, we want that repeat business from you. And again, from our perspective, we limit the PGs to 25% of the loan. So I mentioned we don't ask for debentures on commercial lending, even if it's trading business that we're lending to. And again, we limit the PGs to 25% as well, which we feel is very competitive in the market. But again, Wayne can provide the market overview, I would suggest, on that basis. So yeah, that's my sort of short pitch. I'm happy to field any questions as best I can. Thanks ever so much for your time.
Yeah, there's a few questions in the chat box there, Matt. If you
crikey, okay, yeah, sorry, I've got that open. I'll have a quick look.
If you want to click through the ones that are relevant to you, I think David's boxed all the HMO questions off.
Okay, no problem at all. Just have a quick look.
There's one here, Matt, that says, did you say that you would lend on 2 properties on 1 mortgage? Do you have a portfolio mortgage product?
Yes, we do. So whether that be on buy-to-let or on commercial, absolutely. I suppose the benefit is, clearly simplicity of administration. So from the client's point of view, no doubt their accountants. one facility. But also we can, from a lending perspective, we can aggregate the loans and so the values and also the rental income. Right. So again, if you've got a property that's particularly high yielding, you may have one that's maybe not, I wouldn't say performing, you might have it for different reasons. It might not be as yielding as high. You might have a longer term tenant in there, etc. Or maybe, if it's commercial, tenants contributing towards refurb costs, things like that. We can aggregate the two. So yeah, that is absolutely a good way for us to assist.
And another one there that says, what's the minimum size for a flat that you would consider a mortgage on?
If it was an individual flat, you're looking at 30 square meters, and we're looking for a valuer to confirm demand in terms of rental and sale of property. If we're talking about multi-units, and that's a great point, and one that I missed actually in the presentation. If we're looking at multi-unit blocks, we can consider them under 30 square meters. But what we would do is we would just take a single asset value of the whole block. So for example, if you've got 5 flats, one's 40, 42, 45, 26 and 22, providing that was all obviously in line with planning, etc., we could just take a single asset value and lend against that as opposed to the aggregated figure.
What about a property where you've got, say, 3 flats which are all 1-bed flats and are properly configured as 1-bed flats? Yes. But the 4th was at best a studio, so and at worst a bed sit.
Yeah, again, it would be a single asset value from our perspective. Yeah, right. We look at it. So again, just sort of stepping back and say, we in its crudest form, we look at what would our exit be if this didn't work out, and we had to take possession. What would our exit be? So a single asset value is always a sort of fairly safe position for a bank to be at. We've obviously a suitable valuation report carried out for our purposes. Where we can be more flexible is if you do have a block and all the value of deems that all the properties are individually saleable and could be disposed of if either you as an applicant or we as a lender wanted to within a 12-month period, you can then lend against the aggregated value. So literally add all the values up. That's where we would go. There may be a slight reduction from the value in terms of potential cost for creating individual leaseholds. But generally, we can lend on that aggregated value, and that will allow your clients to pull a bit more out of the property.
Sorry,
Matt, sorry, go on, Anurag.
One follow-up question on that. Here in the block, if you have got, let's say, 5 units and all of them are on individual leases, how will you treat in that scenario? Because it is not a single asset, but a multi-dwelling divided up asset.
Yes, so if a client has created individual leaseholds, but they want us to do one facility across the whole block, we can do that as well. Potentially, we have asked for we call it a comfort charge, which I must admit I don't particularly like. It's a legal charge against the freehold of the property as well. So again, that needs careful consideration from a client's perspective, but we can facilitate in answer to your question.
And there is another question in the chat. I'm going to continue on to that question because it is sort of linked. So okay. There are 9 units in the property and 5 units are being considered for purchase by the seller is same and purchaser is same. The problem I think Neil is facing is that lenders have a policy of around 10% or 20% exposure bit.
Oh, so is that within the 20% exposure within the block? Are they referring to?
Yeah, within the block, yeah.
Yeah, we have exposure limits, but again, we just want to individually assess the case. In reality, sorry to be a bit grey on that one. We don't have a hard and fast, it must be 20%. Again, I've worked with a lender previously or at a lender previously where we had that exposure limit. But again, I think the key difference here, and I haven't mentioned rates and stuff like that, because that's Wayne's job. But what I would say is we're not the cheapest lender in terms of our buy-to-let proposition, because we will go outside of the box and consider unusual circumstances like this. If you've got an experienced landlord and it is just a bog standard single buy to let, I think I'd probably be saying to Wayne or the broker, so why Shawbrooks? There will be cheaper options out there, but things like we don't have things like, as I say, the SIP code restrictions and exposure limits within blocks and things like that. We just want to understand who the client is, what they're about, and is it all viable?
Okay, I hope, Neil, you got your answer for now. Perfect. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Okay, Matt, let me ask a lender directly instead of what I'd normally refer this question to a mortgage broker. But whilst I've got a lender on, question come in, where do you stand on lending to people that are currently on furlough?
Yeah, again, in our world, from a investment point of view, it will have a bearing, but if you've got wider outside income that can cover voids, then again, we don't have a hard and fast policy on that, to be fair. We will clearly ask the client, and we would expect the mortgage broker to check that the client has the necessary income to cover their expenditure. But again, we don't go into too much detail on that side of things, other than just making sure, look, credit history is fine. There's no signs of distress in terms of, for example, if a client was remortgaging a property and they were saying, well, look, it's to pay off my debts and stuff, and because I've lost my job and etc. We would obviously, that would red flag with us. But I don't know, the investors that we tend to deal with are more so focused towards, this is my rental business, my sort of personal income expenditure is sort of ring fenced, if you like.
Okay, there's another one here about mortgage holidays. I would refer these sort of questions, guys, back to your mortgage broker, because I would guess that lenders are going to have sort of different policies on what you are, and depending on what else is going on in your life. So it's difficult for Matt to sort of give a definitive answer on this.
Yeah, I'll just give, sorry, Bo, just to contradict, I'll just give a slight overview. I mean, from our perspective, as long as we understand why the mortgage holiday was taken and it doesn't point us towards a distressed position, then we can look at it. Let's face it, aside from me sort of being obviously working for a bank, I'm a human being as well. None of us knew what was going on in March, to be fair. It was as much as a shock to lenders that the government announced the payment holiday facility. So, we've adapted, and we understand rationale and why people took stuff. We just want to be, as a lender, keen to make sure that we're not putting people in a worse financial position by lending them more money. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I've got one here that is quite interesting from Alex. Commercial value on a vacant possession property. Alex says that he thought a commercial with an expired lease was not mortgageable.
No, again, it depends on the situation. So we, as a lender, especially on commercial, and given the current climate, we will lend off vacant possession value. So, I think we're to give you an example. Look, if you'd have said to me, or Wayne had said to me 18 months ago, Matt, I've got a row of shops. We've got John Lewis in there. We've got a Debenhams. We've got a Thomas Cook. They're all on fantastic leases, long periods of time. There may be a consideration for lending off market value. In reality, now we are a vacant possession lender. In the instance of a vacant property, for us, it's about understanding, again, what's the client's experience. We want to make sure that it is a true investment as well. So again, currently, we're not facilitating applications for trading businesses or owner-occupier business. That's more of a strategic decision with us. We're not saying there's anything wrong with sort of that type of lending. It's more a strategic decision for us to focus on investment. But in answer to the direct question, understand the client's strategy, understand their experience, understand how they're going to meet the mortgage payments, and then understand the demand for the property in the area, and that will need to come obviously from the valuer. But if we can piece all of put those pieces together in the puzzle, and we understand it, then it can be considered.
Yeah. Okay. And one final question, Matt, and then we'll let you off the hook. International investors. Someone's asked, do you lend to international investors? I'm fairly sure that you said during the course of the presentation you did.
Well, we lend to expats, and we can also lend to a foreign investor with a UK-based applicant. So again, I suppose it's a technicality. It's a yes and a no answer for you there. So yeah, expats. So obviously UK national living abroad. Again, prior to this this presentation, I took a call from a broker. He's got a guy that's a dentist living in Dubai. Wants to expand his portfolio. Can we assist? Absolutely. We need to check credit history in this country. We need to check that, again, their experience. We need to understand the strategy. Who's managing that property for you? What's your team like on the ground? And then obviously the usual valuation procedure needs to follow. Again, similarly, if we've got foreign investors, but they've got a UK based and it's a UK company as well. And the structure of that company needs to be UK. So if you've got if you imagine you've got a UK SPV, to say it's Matt Taylor Properties, but actually I'm owned by Matt Taylor Properties America, we're going to cut through that structure and say, actually, your ultimate beneficiary isn't UK. So it's all got to be onshore, if you like. And there needs to be somebody on the ground in the UK as a shareholder.
Yeah.
To carry, sorry, Barry. Just to continue with that example of the company structure. If the company is there is only one company, no parent company. Foreign investors own 100% of the shares. They have a UK director, a solo director. What are your policies around A, will you lend? B, without requiring directors' personal guarantee, how much will you lend?
Well, we'd want the UK individual to be a shareholder. Is the reality. So yeah, we'd want them to be a shareholder, and we would want a PG. We'd also, in that instance, obviously want to understand where deposit funds have come from, or if it's a refinance, how the property was originally purchased as well. What funds we're using, where did they originate from? But again, Wayne and the mortgage broker will be fully versed in presenting that information to us.
Thank you.
Okay, Matt. Right, we're going to let you off.
Okay. Okay,
Matt,
cool.
Virtual round of applause from all of us. No, virtual.
Oh, when I'm not making noise.
And thanks very much. Are you going to stick around for the rest of the evening?
Absolutely.
Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
So if there is anything in the chat box that anybody wants to speak to you particularly about, they can.
Yes,
But bear in mind, guys, that the majority of the questions, right, we would, well, certainly I would, so certainly you would field through your mortgage broker, because that's what the mortgage brokers are there for. That's why we have mortgage brokers. And it's actually Wayne that from DMI that has facilitated this evening's meeting with our guest this evening, Matt. So Matt, thank you very much for your time.
Thanks all.
Great to see you on. I hope you're going to come back later on in the year when things have changed slightly and update us, if that's okay.
Anytime. Yeah, anytime. Thanks ever so much, guys. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Matt. Right. Okay, without further ado, let's go straight into our next regular slot, who has got 15 minutes, Wayne. I say 15, I know he's going to take 20, 25. Yeah. And Wayne, no doubt, is there going to be giving us an update on the mortgage market across all of the lenders and what's happening from his point of view at the moment with valuers and any questions for about valuations and things like that. We can feed into Wayne. So Wayne, are you there, mate?
I'm here, my friend. Absolutely. Yeah.
Good. Do you want to
share my screen? Here we go. Right. Hi, guys.
Technology works.
Yes. So I'm Wayne. I'm from DMI Finance. I think probably a lot of you will know me. I recognize a lot of names there. I think I'm familiar to most of you, but those of you that don't know me or don't know DMI, I'll give you a bit of a whistle-stop tour of who we are. As I say, I'm Wayne. I'm the MD. I've been at the firm for 15 years. We are very, very much a specialist mortgage broker. We focus on investors. Almost all of our clients are investors. We've been trading for 20 years. We're a team of 13, 14 of us. In fact, we're taking on a couple of new brokers imminently. We're independent. We access every bank, every building society, front street, back street lender. The key is, keeping Shaw relatively kind of Shawbrooks centric here, or challenger bank centric. Look, as a good broker, we don't focus on price. And I will go in, I'll tell you what the headline rates are and whatever else, but a good broker shouldn't be focused on price, and a client shouldn't necessarily, that shouldn't be the be all and end all. It's so multifaceted. And as a good broker, it's all about strategy, as I think Matt and Barry and David have said. And it might well be that the strategy in taking X product rather than Y, or buying, for example, bridging. People might shun bridging, but ultimately, it doesn't matter what it costs you, so long as you can afford it. It's the ultimate question really should be, what will I make from it? What will it make me? So, we're very strategic in what we do, and we have relationships. As I say, we're a strategic partner of Shawbrooks, and with a lot of the challenger type lenders, as well as very mainstream lenders. We arrange all types of property finance, so buy-to-lets, HMOs, commercial, bridging, development, the whole kind of shebang. And we arrange finance for both UK investors and international investors. So that might be international investors living abroad, it might be expats, it might be international or foreign citizens living in the UK, the whole multitude of factors. Normally what I do is I'll go through a little bit about the marketplace. I know I'm on a timer here, but I'll go through a little bit about the marketplace, some changes to it now. I thought I'd mention or talk about EWS1 forms. I don't know if anyone knows what an EWS1 form is, but I'll explain that in a minute, because it's a hot topic at the moment, or it certainly seems to be with our clients nevertheless. And then I'll go on and give you some idea of headline rates. So marketplace, well, where are we? I mean, momentum is continuing from our side of things. We're incredibly busy, much possibly due to the SDLT deadline. We've now got 45 days. I think it's 9 weeks today until March the 31st. Things are definitely very busy for brokers, definitely very busy for lenders. But ultimately, we specialize on speed. We focus on speed. We focus on efficiency, proactivity, and we're very confident that applications that we're getting in now should really complete within the deadline, before the deadline, if required. A typical transaction with us perhaps is getting an offer within 2 to 4 weeks. I think the good thing at the moment is that many lenders are now temporarily willing to accept the applicant to take out a search indemnity policy for local authority searches, which has combats that potential barrier of customers looking to benefit from the SDLT change. The other point to mention is that whilst the majority of lenders should have no issue, we've got some lenders, and in fact, someone in the challenger space, Matt, at Hampshire Trust, have come out, they've really affirmed that any application that they get in now, they will not have any intention of completing. They will not let it complete by March the 31st, and that's probably the right thing to do if they're too busy. But I'd say work longer and employ more staff. But hey, what do I know? We've seen a lot of rate drops and things announced in the last few days. Shawbrooks have significantly reduced their rates on their buy-to-let range, and I can go through. To be honest, I thought I was going to say it before you, and I wasn't going to steal your thunder, so I've not brought the rates down. But it's a rate drop of perhaps 0.55 on the buy-to-let range, is it not, Matt?
Yeah, 0.55 against the large HMOs. There are some other alterations, sort of for the more simplistic transactions, but yeah, that's the biggest drop. Yeah.
Fantastic, perfect. We've seen some other lenders, and I'll show you when I go on to the headline rates in a minute. Precise have made some pretty meaty reductions in their rates. And look, Precise are a very mainstream, vanilla type lender. So, understand that the same sort of business that you would put to Shawbrooks and put to Precise may not be identical. What you get with Precise is perhaps very black and white. And if it is that it needs to be black and white, then, hey, it's a great product. To give you some understanding of what they've dropped by a similar amount on some of their rates. They're 2-year fixed. So I think if you've seen the Zoom calls or the webinars over the last few months, I think the lowest we've seen limited company buy-to-let rates at 75% B is 2.99, and they've been pretty much above 3% for some time now. Precise came out today, in fact, 2.79% on a 2-year fixed buy-to-let, limited company as well. So it's a 0.35% cheaper than they were yesterday. They've reduced their arrangement fee by 0.5% to 1.5 from 2%. So pretty attractive product. Even their, that's a limited company, their HMO and multi-unit proposition has dropped to 2.89 on a 2-year fixed. And again, they've reduced their arrangement fees. We've got Land Bay, who have brought out a special edition HMO range, and they're offering free vals with remortgage cases. And reasonably interestingly, the mortgage works. They've got no real significant change in their rates, but what they have done is they've introduced free legals on their limited company remortgage applications. Now, actually, if we're doing a remortgage with a limited company, people expect there to be a higher rate, a higher cost. Generally, there is. So, if you are the cost conscious, certainly for upfront costs, that might be an attractive proposition. Their rate perhaps is less palatable, but if you're conscious of upfront costs, then it might be worth looking at. Excuse me, EWS1 assessments. I don't know who knows what they are, if anyone's come across them before, but they are the bane of our life at the moment. Quite simply, it is an assessment, an external fire risk assessment, essentially, of a block, typically with cladding. Now, it's been brought about or borne about by the Grenfell Tower disaster, and it was implemented by RICS following government guidance. And as I say, it's something that we're seeing an awful lot of now, where a valuer will go out, he will say that I need an EWS1 assessment because there's cladding, and the responsibility to get that assessment carried out lies not with the leaseholder, the individual owner of the flat, it lies with the freeholder or the management company of the block. Quite expensive, they're quite timely, there's lots of procedures to go through, and it's delaying a lot of purchases, a lot of remortgages, a lot of sales. The good thing is, though, there is perhaps some light at the end of the tunnel. There is a consultation that was carried out by RICS and with lenders between the 8th and the 25th of Jan, which is just concluded. So it concluded on Monday. Now, we don't have the results of it yet, but what we expect to see which is not what we have at the moment, is that far fewer properties will fall into the requirements of an EWS1 form. And the main changes that we're hoping to see, and hoping based on what they anticipate happening, is that buildings of 4 stories or fewer without aluminium composite material, ACM, or metal composite material will be excluded from requiring an EWS1 form, and that buildings of 5 or 6 stories in height would again not require an EWS1 assessment, provided there is no more than a quarter of the surface area of the building clad with those aforementioned materials. So if it happens, and we'll know, I think, you know, certainly within a couple of weeks, the result is expected to be announced in early Feb. It really could open up a lot of the remortgage business, or indeed the purchase business, that people haven't been able to commit to as of yet. And I'm sure there will be some people in the room that have come across this, and it's created a bit of an issue. So I mean, if this is implemented, it could clear the way or pave the way for 450,000 flat owners to sell or remortgage their properties. So pretty significant. In terms of headline rates, and then it's pretty much it from me, guys. Some really attractive, it's not 2020. I don't know why I said that. Ignore that. It's 2021. Headline rates for 2 and 5 year fixed pricing. So personal name buy-to-lets, we all know it. They're very, very attractive. 1.59% for a personal name buy-to-let at 75% headline. For a 2 year fixed for a limited company or an SPV, as I mentioned earlier, some very keenly priced rates have come out to the market today at 2.79%. And for HMOs and multi-unit freehold blocks, 2.89%. Again, it doesn't matter whether it's a limited company transaction or in your personal name. 5 year stands to reason a little less competitive. 5 year is coming in a personal name. Cheapest rate on the market today is 2.03% in personal name, 3.39 for limited company or SPV. And then for HMO and multi-unit, again, it doesn't matter which entity you buy the property in, whether it be an SPV or your personal name, 3.59%. You know, their headline rates, as I say, there will be higher rates, and depending on experience, depending on property type, depending on income, depending on condition, construction, tenant type, you know, the options available to you might be markedly different. They might be exactly that. The reality is you come to a broker, we understand you, we put you or paint a picture of you to in the most attractive way to the most relevant lender for you. Hopefully we can get these sort of rates, but if we can't, then we'll, you know, commit that we will of course get you the very best rates that are you're eligible to take. I don't know what I'm doing for time, Barry, but do I have any time for any questions?
I was going to say yes if I unmute myself. Yes, yeah, you have actually.
Good. So Kevin, what kind of rates for serviced accommodation? Look, not marginally similar, low 4s possibly. What if the EWS1 from RM is not legally required? It's under 18 square meters.
Remortgage, I think that means when.
Okay. Look, the problem is, and we've had a lot. I mean, we've got some in Bristol, which are 4 stories, which, you know, it's under 18 square meters. The problem is, it's the age-old problem. You know, lenders rely on the valuer. It's subject to valuer's comments. It's like a lender saying, hey, we'll lend above that flat above a chip shop. Well, they say it's in their criteria, but you get a valuer to come out and say they'll do it. Now, if we go to select lenders, I know Shawbrooks will do it, but I know other lenders will say we'll do it. And actually the valuer will be very negative about it and not do it. And the problem that you find here is that valuers are hesitant. They're unsure. And irrespective of the 18-meter element, we have 8, 9 applications which have been carried out with various valuers on behalf of various lenders that that we've got an issue with. Does that make sense? It very much depends, Barbara, on the transaction. Our minimum fee is £500, a fixed fee of £500. If it's an auction transaction or something more complex, and typically our fee would be 1% of the loan, but everything is specific to an individual. You know, I don't know what your circumstances are. I don't know where we'd be going. I don't know what finance could be obtainable for you, but give me a call. I've got my contact details or the office details on the bottom there. Come back to us. Heard of the grapevine of a 30-year fix? You know, actually, Arvinder, yeah, good to see you, my friend. Yeah, there is a 30-year fixed. The company that's introducing it, so is it Dutch Mortgages or something? It's very common on the continent. But yeah, there is a lender coming out to the market later this year. You know, they've got £7 million worth of funding. That doesn't stretch so far. So I wouldn't hold your hopes out just yet. I forget the company name, but yeah, if you Google it, you'll find it. How will they know whether there is ACM or MCM before the survey report is done? Well, that's just it. They don't. So Neil, the valuer, doesn't know, and therefore he's hesitant. He doesn't want to go in and say, yeah, it's worth X, lend on it, because he doesn't know whether there is ACM or MCM, hence the requirement for the survey.
Wayne, a difficult one. And this is a real case, and I'm on the receiving end of it. So okay. I've got this unit in one of those cladding issues building.
Yes.
The unit was bought for 210, and the cladding issue and all the lovely fire safety stuff, the cost has come to 130 plus the waking watch. Can I remortgage it?
So you've had the EWS one.
It failed. There is a cladding issue. So yeah. The estimates have come 130 to replace the whole cladding, 130K per unit.
Yeah.
To replace the whole cladding and the fire safety and all that. Bearing in mind it was bought for 210. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
And then there is waking watch.
No, I know it's a horrible position, but I think fundamentally you're not going to be able to.
Yeah. Any cash buyers in the room?
It's horrible, isn't it? It really is.
Yeah, I know it is. And we have been campaigning and we have been lobbying and all that, and it is just a shithole. So
Nora, four of the applications that I've got on at the moment are for clients. A relatively new build, I say relatively new build, kind of 2013, 14, but pre-Grenfell, obviously, in Bristol, you know, reasonable value properties, all in the same block. You know, it will be dreadful if he ends up in the same position, and he might well do. We don't know. We've got to wait for the EWS1 form, which is horrific. Now, as it happens, his block is slightly smaller. We don't know. I mean, we don't know whether it's ACM or MCM, but we shall wait and see. But I don't think we're going to be able to do much for yours there, regretfully.
See, I told you it is a difficult question to answer.
I know. It's not a nice one either. I'm very much a yes man. No, I guess you know, and it's kind of.
Hey, I'm still laughing. So, hey, that is part of the fun and games you face when you are a property investor, guys.
So Juta, we're planning to create a company in the UK by myself and my husband, but we're not UK based. Could you include some information of opportunities? Well, look, so I don't know where it is that you live. I don't know which country you're in, Juta. I don't know whether it's a...
Sorry, Wayne. I was talking to Juta in private, so let me fill you in. They are based out of Belgium. She has also mentioned that slightly below. They are based out of Belgium, new investors, and they are thinking of setting up a company here and buying the mortgage, buy the property in it.
Okay. Well, they can definitely do it. I mean, look, they're going to get products for foreign nationals. I don't know whether it's going to be a simple buy-to-let.
They are doing it in the company. They don't want to do it in personal name.
They don't want to do it in personal names, but they're the directors of the company. So, you know, whilst the company is a UK company, you know, you have to be aware that the vast majority of lenders, when they lend to a company, they're lending to a company purely for Section 24 benefits. You know, you have a UK rental income, Section 24 has come in. What can we do to avoid it? We'll buy it in a company. Lenders, the only reason they've ever got on board, and you've always had challenger specialist lenders like Shawbrooks that have always been in that domain, but the lion's share of the kind of vanilla type lenders, the only reason they've entered this is to lend to the applicants in a different guise. It's a cloak that they wear to make them more tax efficient. So ultimately, they can buy it in whatever company they want. They can set it up today, and a lender would lend to it today because they're not looking at the company, they're looking at the individuals. If Juta, you want to get in touch, explain what you're doing, whether you're enhancing the value of the property. I mean, look, if you're enhancing the value, if you're doing works to it, if you're kind of doing the traditional method of enhancing the value and then looking to refinance, we can absolutely do it. We'd acquire it on some form of short-term bridging proposition, no doubt, in the first instance, and then as soon as the property is refurbished, we can look to refinance it.
Okay.
I can see here, Sarah, you just said a limited company because we're a team of 4, so not just Section 24. But it does mean that we usually have to provide personal guarantees for lenders. Look, you usually have to provide personal guarantees for lenders, even if there were 2 of you. I mean, you know, unless you will be going to a more specialist lender where PGs can be limited, PGs can be avoided, and as Matt said, 25% PG with Shawbrooks. Most lenders will want a PG. I guess what does limit you is the 4 directors, because not all lenders will lend with 4 directors.
What if you are doing 50% loan to value? Will you still need PG for the remaining 50?
It depends which type of lender you go to. The key is, you know, traditional buy-to-let lenders, there is very little wiggle room. You know, these lenders, they lend at such a fast pace and such ostensibly competitive rates that there's no, you know, time or want or inclination for them to say, I tell you what, yeah, we could get lots more business from Anurag because he can do it like this. So the vast majority, if we're talking about your precise at the most competitive rates, not a chance. The PG is the PG. You have a portfolio at 20% gearing, which is worth £40 million. Unfortunately, you're in the same boat as everybody else. But other lenders absolutely will take a view. It's all about understanding the actual requirements. And as a broker, you know, we're giving you enough information. We're not sat here and saying, we advise you do this. We're giving you enough information so you, the individual, can make an informed decision. So when you come to us, when somebody comes to us, we're not sat here order taking and saying, that's what you want, that's what we've given you. We're saying, I know you want that, and I can see the merits in doing that. But actually, if you were willing to give a PG, we might be talking about this rate rather than this rate. Or, you know, if you didn't buy it, you know, you've got 4 directors, it might be husband and wife, husband and wife. If you didn't, and, you know, it was the 2 wives that bought the property, actually, you might be able to get funding with these lenders. Now, the difference might be negligible, and you might just say, well, to hell with it, I'll go with X. But as a good broker, you know, the key is not just saying, take this rate. It's explaining why what you want isn't available to you, or why what other options might be just as competitive or more competitive.
Yeah, I'm not going to take more time. We'll talk tomorrow, Wayne.
Perfect. Sounds good to me. Absolutely.
Okay. Right. Guys, all of these sort of questions that quite often there's several different answers to them, depending on where you are, what your portfolio is like, what your experience is, etc., 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 etc. So all I can advise, and I seen that you said, Sarah, that not all the people involved are directors. Pick up the phone to Wayne. You know, whether you use him, and I know he doesn't mind me saying this, whether you use him as your broker or not, he certainly give you advice on where you are and what give you some sort of steer direction where you should go with this, because that's what mortgage broker is there for. And you know, as Wayne said, he doesn't like saying no. He's normally a yes guy. So if there is a, I wouldn't say a way around it, but if it's doable, trust me, and that's why Wayne is the guy that we've got on part of our team on National Property Networks. Because if there isn't a way around it, he will try and find one for you. And that's why we, as I said, we use DMI and Wayne as the people to team up with. Okay, we're going to move on, guys. We normally we overrun massively, and I get criticised for it by certain people sat at the side of me, shall be nameless. But what I was going to do there, Wayne, if it's all right, unless you've got anything else to say, again, virtual round of applause to Wayne. Personal message to Wayne. If we can catch up in the morning, mate, about what we were talking about yesterday.
Absolutely.
That'd be great. And as always, thank you very much to Wayne, and you'll no doubt see you next month.
My details are there, and if anyone needs me, you know where I am. Right.
So what I was going to do now, David, Wayne, if you could stop sharing your screen, please, that would help. What I was going to do now, David, Anurag, is spend sort of 10 or 15 minutes with everyone, asking if there are any specific questions for us as the team. You've got coaches, mentors, HMO specialists, lease option specialists, business specialists, IT specialists. Anyone got any general questions, not pertaining to what we've just gone through, but general questions, anything that we can help you with for the next sort of 10 or 15 minutes?
Can I say what I have observed in few conversations previously and now? Many people in the room are not aware that if a building has got multiple units, you will struggle to get mortgage for more than 10% of the block from a single lender. So be careful about it. And it has happened to me with Birmingham Midshires. They said no, because in a particular development, giving me mortgage would have exposed them for more than 10%. So if you're going to buy multiple units, be very careful. Don't think of getting the mortgage from one lender. You might have to do 3 or 4, or depending on number of units, unless you are going for the whole block where the as met addressed, you can do a creative financing there. So be mindful of that. I had in last 4 weeks about 3 conversations where people have fallen for that, and then they are thinking, oh shit, we had not factored in multiple costs of valuation and all that.
I think that my recommendation on that is that if you are thinking of doing something like that, yeah, whatever you're thinking of buying, just run it through your broker first. Yeah, I honestly and truthfully, I never, the second that I've got a property that comes to me, right, the first person that I call is Wayne. Yeah, to say, right, I'm thinking of doing X, Y, and Z. Is it doable? Am I going to get lending on it? Right. If he is not able to give me some sort of confidence that I'm going to get lending on it, I don't pursue the purchase. I don't want to get halfway down the line and somebody say, "Oh no, you can't get lending on that now." And as Anurag quite rightly said, there are an awful lot of people, right, that will spend weeks and weeks and weeks doing due diligence. They'll spend a fortune on surveyors, etc., etc., etc. And then at the point that they're ready to start buying the property, yeah, they go to the mortgage broker. No, go to the mortgage broker first. Yeah, because if you can't lend on it, the whole thing's not going to work. Yeah. Okay, you might want to go to 2 or 3 mortgage brokers to sort of, test the market, because what one mortgage broker does or says, it depends on the relationship they've got with the individual lenders. Yeah. But always make sure you run whatever you've got in mind by your mortgage broker first. Yeah, that's why you should have a good relationship with your mortgage broker. Yeah, because the relationship I've got with my mortgage broker is the fact that they don't mind me calling, because they would sooner me call at the point right at the very, very beginning than have to try and get me out of a mess further down the line. It doesn't make any sense for them not to do that.
Yeah, and also please don't send every deal you think is a deal to them for advice. Do your numbers first before going to them. Otherwise, you will piss them off so much they won't even pick up your call, and Wayne might start saying no to you straight away.
See, there's the analyst. Yeah, just get stuff done. Right.
Really
Right.
simple question here, Barry. If I'm not employed with a company, will it stop me getting a buy-to-let mortgage? No, it won't. But you may have to have a couple of years accounts that you may have to prove to the lender. But again, speak to your broker, because there are some lenders out there that will look at your situation very specifically. So I mean, I'm not employed by a company. I'm unemployable, and I still get mortgages. So
Even at his age.
Yeah. Yeah, you're unemployable as well, Barry. I know. Yeah. So just because you're not employed, but do talk to your broker and find out what it is that they require from you. I've just had a letter from my accountant that says, this is what my earnings are over the last couple of years, a 2 years thing. So that it won't stop you getting a buy-to-let mortgage.
Sorry, David. Neil Jackson, thank you very much for what you've just wrote on the private message there. Would you? I'm delighted. I knew that you would anyway. That's why we got him on and gave him away as a prize. It would be nice if you post that message to the whole group, and it wouldn't be right for me to say that. So we really appreciate your comments on that. If you post it to the whole group, that would be absolutely brilliant. Is there any model spreadsheets available from yourselves to help with working out the numbers? Appreciate any advice. I know as an analyst, keen to hear from you on this. Right, I don't care what Anurag says. Yeah, forget spreadsheets. Right, if you can't do it with that doesn't work, does it?
Put it in front of you, Barry.
If you can't do it with a pen and paper, yeah, then you shouldn't be able to do it. Don't rely on spreadsheets. Yeah,
I agree.
Would it help you guys if we did a training session on numbers for you? Yeah, a training session particularly for the people on numbers. Yeah, to learn how to do it on. I don't mind spreadsheets, but before we do spreadsheets, before we sort of give you spreadsheets to be able to analyze these deals, right? You need to be able to understand the numbers, because you need to know where those numbers come from and what they mean.
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree with Barry 100%, and I'm an analyst through and through. And yes, I do have spreadsheets. To be frankly honest, these days I just don't need them or use them.
Yeah.
I agree with the two. Yes, I love my spreadsheets, but if you are talking to me over the phone, and I'm sure Neil will be able to tell you, I was with him on the call, and I was doing my calculation in my head because I knew how to calculate. You don't need spreadsheets. If you are reliant on the spreadsheets, you are just making your work more difficult and yourself handicapped. Please do not rely on them.
Someone's just said here, John Nielsen says, Jeanette loves numbers. Watch a video on the AAG website. Not everyone's part of the Asset Academy group on here. We've got an awful lot of people that are not, guys, just for your information. That's why we don't mention the name. But Go away. Yeah.
You have a ghost in the wallpaper, Barry.
She's more than a ghost in the wallpaper. But I wasn't thinking of doing these numbers myself, guys. I was going to bring the specialist in.
Absolutely.
Right, who is a specialist, particularly, dare I say, and I don't mean this, please don't take that I mean this unkindly. Yeah. If anyone has a problem getting the number thing over the line, Jeanette is far better than me at doing it. And if David does it, he just teaches you to divide by 2 and it comes out at the end, and I haven't got a clue what he's talking about, and I know what he's talking about. So we'll let Jeanette pick that one up. And it doesn't matter whether you're useless or not. It took us what, months and months and months to get the numbers. And the best way to practice numbers, and Eve will tell you this because she just had a session with Jeanette. The best way to practice numbers is to watch Jones and the Hammer, apparently. Not that I would advocate anybody watching that, the amount of times it's on a week. Yeah. Apparently Jeanette's the glue that holds me together.
It's true. Thanks.
Yeah.
Can I add that as a testimonial?
Yeah. Can you give her that as a testimonial, Sarah? You are absolutely quite right. You really are.
Oh, is that Sarah?
Let's right. Where else are we? Let's.
Please, can you let us know what is the current situation on the market? Do you and somebody else is saying, do we still think the market is going to crash? Well, the prediction from the Bank of England is that it's going to go down between 8 and 10%. So I'm not convinced it's going to crash, but I am pretty convinced that we'll see the property market drop. And don't forget that after March the 31st, the 3% stamp duty goes back to being as per normal as it stands at the moment. Who knows what's going to happen with the government chopping and changing their mind. So I think it's keep an eye on it. I don't think it's going to crash, but I do think there's going to be some changes. I have to say, though, from what Wayne and Matt were saying, that, you know, there must be a lot of confidence out there in the money markets that the interest rates and are going to stay low for a considerable amount of time. Otherwise, they wouldn't be putting their fixed rates down at all. They would be either keeping them the same or would put them up. Also, the Bank of England rates are not always the rates these days that people work with. It's normally the LIBOR rate that people work with these days, because it's the way in which banks lend to each other that becomes important. So I do think it's still a buyer's market, I think, but it is also area dependent, and it's very area dependent at the moment. I know most of the areas are now in what they call tier 4, but I think I think the government were getting so criticised, they just said, oh, let's just go into lockdown. However, lockdown is what different people make of it, I guess.
There are differences of opinion on this, guys, about what's going to happen with the market. Yeah. Here's the latest statistics and me on my soapbox very, very quickly. Yeah. Yesterday, unemployment was announced at being 5%. Yeah. That is the 3 months to the end of November. When the lockdown started, the first lockdown, there was 1.2 million people claiming benefits. There is now 2.6 million claiming benefits. That's 1.4 million people that are now claiming benefits and out of work. And we've still got furlough. Yeah. My personal thought is the fact that property will go down in price. It might not be next week, it might not be next month, but in time it will go down in price, because sadly, at the end of all this, there are going to be an awful lot of people that lose their jobs when furlough ends. Yeah, there's an awful lot of employers out there that are waiting for furlough to end. Yeah, everything to die down, the heat to die down, so they don't get wrapped up in bad press to say, oh yeah, we've got sacked because of X, Y, or Z. Yeah, you look at the hospitality industry, it is absolutely an industry that I know. I worked in for 30 odd years. Yeah, it's been absolutely decimated. The only things that are keeping those companies going at the moment, right, is furlough. The fact that they've got the staff on furlough. Yeah. There are going to be monumental changes of the way we run our lives. Yeah. So, and the other thing, bear in mind, right, that we represent, the people on this webinar represent about 30%, 35 maximum, between 30 and 35% of people that buy and sell property. Yeah. 65% of people that buy property, and when the majority of these figures have been recorded, are people in residential properties that are buying and selling residential properties. It's not about the private, it's not, sorry, it is not about the property investment market. This property market is about the residential market, which is why the impact of the stamp duty and the stamp duty holiday has made such a massive difference. And you've got to understand that.
Yeah.
So, you know, think about it. Is it going to go down? From my point of view, it is still a buyer's market. It's just that it's taking longer than I first thought and predicted, right, for the sellers to realize it. And anybody that is out there doing business at the moment, anybody is out there speaking to estate agents and things, yeah, 4 or 5 months ago, you would never, ever receive a telephone call from an estate agent to say, are you still interested in this property? Yeah, that is starting to happen more and more and more and more. How do I know that? Because our phone is ringing from estate agents that we work with. And David's quite right. I mean, it is geocentric. So, you know, it's where you are in it's geographical, wherever you are in the country, it's going to change. Question came in earlier, what's the London market going to do? The London market is absolutely stagnant at the moment, right? Because there are so many people that are coming out of London, because everybody's working from home. They don't need to live in London. They don't need to have a dwelling that they're paying goodness knows what for in the centre of London. And the closer you get to the city, yeah, the financial hub of the country, there are. I've got people. I've got students, mentees that I teach that can't rent their properties for love nor money in the centre of London. Yeah, so that is telling you something. Yeah, that really is telling you something. But if the bottom line on this is the fact that if you do your numbers properly, if you make sure that you do your due diligence properly, and you make sure that you employ a number of strategies that most of you have been taught, and those of you that haven't, right, let us know, and we'll show you some. We'll teach you some, yeah. Then your property business will still work, because we will give you strategies that will work whether the market is going up or going down. I mean, the amazing thing for me, as we've heard from Wayne and from Matt tonight, is the rates that the lenders have got. Massive amount of confidence in the market, yeah. However, sadly, people have already, 1.4 million claiming benefits since the start of the pandemic. Yeah, that's got to hit somewhere. The next thing is that government are going to want their money back. Yeah, and the favourite, I actually don't think stamp duty is going to make that great deal of difference, whether he stops it or not. The big thing is when the government start to, and I don't mean to sound political here, when the government start thinking about duty on fuel and things like that. Yeah. So that's me off my soapbox. Sorry about that, but somebody did ask.
No, actually that comes partly into the next question as well, which is that somebody's brand new. So it's Andrew Bellman. getting a little confused and conflicting advice about the best way to go in terms of whether it's a personal versus a limited company. And, you know, I don't think we can answer that because it constitutes financial advice. So I would say go and talk to an accountant who's got a property portfolio. I think you've got to do that. We cannot advise you of whether to stay personal. By far the majority of properties in my portfolio were bought prior to limited companies even getting lending. So a lot of them are personal. So I was hit by clause 24, the same as all the other people were. I mean, subsequently, of course, I've now got a company that buys property, so we're doing that. But it's very difficult. It also depends upon your strategy. If you intend to just get one or two, then personal might be the way to stay with it. If you're going to get 20 or 30, then probably a limited company. But that's not a piece of advice that we can give you. You need to identify what your strategy is. You need to think about putting together your own small personal business plan, and then discussing that probably with an accountant. But for goodness sake, go and find an accountant that's got a property portfolio, because they understand all of the idiosyncrasies with the inland revenue and how they deal with property. So that would be what I would say.
Can I add to that, David?
Yeah.
My take on that is this, that your tax position, yeah, and this is not financial advice, it's fact, your tax position will change depending on, well, the tax position for the 160 odd people or whatever it is that's left on here, yeah, 150 odd, right, is different for every single one of us.
Absolutely.
Yeah? If you go to an accountant, the first thing that the accountant will do is say, get a limited company, yeah, because it is most tax efficient. It is most tax efficient. However, two things. One, you have got to think about the differential between how much you are saving in tax by the Section 24, as opposed to how much it's costing you for an accountant, when most of you, if you set up a limited company now, you will not need that limited company to do anything, or that accountant to do anything, right? Because you haven't bought any property yet. And the question came in from somebody that hasn't even got a property, they're just starting. So my advice is this, right? Speak to two people, right? Speak to a property biased accountant that's got a property portfolio, as David quite rightly says, and speak to your mortgage broker. Because if you cannot buy the property, yeah, I will promise you here and now, and this is not financial advice, this is fact. I will promise here and now, if you can't get lending on a property, yeah, then you won't have to pay any tax. Top and bottom, yeah. If you haven't got any properties, you won't have to pay any tax. I promise you.
Can I quickly add to that? I also have, just like David and Barry and others, personal property in personal name, and recently started the limited company. You have to remember, government is changing tax rules on a yearly basis, if not 2-3 times a year. So don't try to solve future problems, solve today's problem and start somewhere. Far better to start than to be perfect for future.
Yeah, also you have to remember, and again, this is not advice, but you know, you pay tax on the profits of your limited company. If you then extract money for your personal use from that limited company, you will pay personal income tax as well. So again, that, you know, Barry talked about offsetting tax. You've got to understand the total tax position. I mean, if you then sort of start to take money out of your limited company, and that takes you into a higher tax bracket, you have to take that into account. And again, that's not for us to say, because every single person on here has a different financial position, and so we can't possibly give you any steer. So again, you know, Barry's right. You talk to a broker. You have to have a broker anyway. You have to have a broker that understands your business. And again, if you went to somebody like Wayne, Wayne's got a, you know, Wayne's in the business of broking such a wide variety of different mortgages and lending and stuff like that, that he's got a lot more experience than somebody perhaps who may be a broker that works in an ordinary estate agency who only deals perhaps with a small panel of lenders. They don't understand your business strategy, but I can assure you, when you go and speak to Wayne, he will understand your business strategy.
Whilst we're on Wayne, sorry Wayne, just one quick. Clara has just put a question in. Are there lenders lending on properties with tenant charity for vulnerable housing or housing vulnerable people?
Absolutely.
I think you picked that up as well.
A lot of social housing. With the number of lenders, tenant type isn't really the kind of mitigating factor. It's who the company is, how long they're letting the property from you for. But if you're letting it to vulnerable adults, asylum seekers, but what they really want to make sure is there's no ongoing care carried out at the property. That if it's just a property that houses rehabilitated offenders or rehabilitating offenders that may have some support structure in the daytime, then it's not much of an issue. If they've got an office space or someone's permanently living there with them, then possibly not, Clara. But I've answered that. I was going to say about the about the accountancy thing there. I think, you know, the fact is, you do see everybody when they get into property, there's a big why. Why have they got into property? And for a lot of the people that I speak to, the big why is that they don't want to be doing their day-to-day business. And, you know, so unless your accountant is property specific, is asking you, well, you're earning a six-figure sum working for Google at the moment, but you're not going to be earning that in 3 years' time, are you? You're going to be quitting your job and you're going to be relying solely on your 3 or 4 properties. It's all about understanding where you're going to be or where you forecast yourself, as well as where you are now. If your accountant isn't asking you those questions, then they must be the wrong accountant, because, you know, yes, you're earning a 6-figure sum now. So, you know, oh, crikey, you're a high rate taxpayer, but in your company name. But the reality is, if the questions aren't being asked about your future intentions with that background income, and let's face it, a lot of people get into property to get rid of that income, to create that passive income from property, then they're probably not the right person for you.
Okay, right. We're almost, I've got 3 minutes to answer this last question that is quite interesting. I get, this is from Belinda. I get the numbers, but my biggest fear is that I've got the DUV right. Really tricky trying to work it out sometimes. And if it's wrong, that's a problem. Okay, Belinda. Marvelous question. Let me say this to you, right? I have got a valuer, yeah, who doesn't do very much valuing anymore. He's what's called an expert witness. And what he does is go around the country, right, stands in courts where there is a dispute between a valuer, a lender, someone that's buying a house, whatever, yeah. And he says, he will say, because of his experience and how long he's been doing it, he says, right, I think this property is worth this. This is what it's valued at. Yeah, that's his job. Yeah, this is what it's valued at. And I said to him, and he's quite a good friend of mine, doesn't live far away. And I said to him, when I said, how do you, when you can't find any comparables, yeah, how do you actually value a property? You know, how are we supposed to value properties when we can't find the do not value? Yeah, surely you must have the same thing. How do you do it? He says, well, I'll look at Rightmove and I'll look at this and I'll look at that, the same as most of you have been taught. He says, and then I guess. I says, what? He says, I guess. I says, you are an expert witness. What do you mean you guess? He says, well, it's based on 40 years worth of experience. He says, but it's a guess. Now, here's the bottom line, guys. Yeah. And hopefully this is some measure of comfort to you, right? You are never going to get that DUV horribly wrong. Yeah. And the reason I say that is because if you are borrowing from a lender, and Matt will reiterate this, if you are borrowing from a lender, whether it be Shawbrooks or one of the high street banks, whatever, yeah, they will want a valuation done on the property. That is always your safety net, because if the lender's valuer comes out and says it is not worth what you are paying for it, guess what? You've got the DUV wrong. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And quite often I will say to her, I've got lenders, I've got valuers, yeah, that will say, yeah, all right, which we're talking about what the end value is, but I've got valuers that I will do ask for a pre and post refurbishment valuation. Yeah, a pre and post refurbishment valuation. Always got to be a rich value that will do that. And by doing that, I'm generally, right, get my my bridging loans over the line very quickly. Great for bridging loans, that a pre and post refurbishment valuation. But don't worry, if the house is not worth what you're paying for it, your safety net is that the lender won't give you the money anyway. They won't mortgage the property anyway. So just bear that in mind. Is it an exact science, Belinda? I wish I could say it was. It's not. Yeah. And I'm sorry to say this. I don't know if we've got any valuers on, right? But Wayne will tell you this through his experience, where we've been trying to get valuation through on some properties that that Jeanette and I wanted to buy, right? There are some very odd valuers out there with some very, very, very strange logic in terms of valuing up property. Yeah.
Yeah, I've got a very quick story. So we just had one of our HMOs revalued, and there is nothing like it. It's a 10-bed HMO. It's right in the middle of the town, and it's that close to the university. It's almost within spitting distance. And the guy came along and said to us, "No, I think it's worth this." He said, "There's nothing that I can compare it against. There are no comparables." So he compared it to this is a 10-bed HMO. So it was a 6-bed HMO that he compared it with, which is totally different. The incomes were different. And the other thing was the 6-bed HMO had been empty for 3 years. And he valued mine at the same price that he'd valued the 6-bed HMO at. And I said, well, I just don't think that works for you. And I said, look, I've got 16 years worth of rental income on this property that's provable, and you're comparing it with the property that hasn't rented for 3 years. And I know why it hasn't rented, because it is full of damp. So, sometimes I think that they do this. Sometimes they do a drive-by. They just drive by and they look at the property and go, yeah, it's standing, and they put a value on it. And sometimes they do this. Put a finger in the air and see what comes out. It's very, very difficult. I mean, you can challenge evaluation, or don't think that you can't. You can challenge evaluation, but you need to have standby figures to attempt to do that.
I've just had a mentee this week, yeah, that has a property that they expected the done-up value to be £125,000. Yeah, the valuer has valued it at £170,000. They're not challenging that one.
Absolutely not.
And on that note, I think it's time we ought to say goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. We're going to do more and more of this Q&A stuff going forward, because I think it's quite important. And as I said, we're going to do some learning as well. So from the bottom of our hearts, from Anurag and David and myself, and from Wayne and from Matt, Thank you all for being with us. Again, from our point of view, as always, Wayne, thank you very much. And Matt, thanks for joining us. You've been fantastic, brilliant. And we will see you on, drum roll, the 24th of February, guys. 24th of February. Put it in your diaries. Okay.
There will also be a recording of this placed on the website.
Yeah, we'll put as normal. We'll put the recording on.
The recording will go onto the YouTube page.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
We've got a YouTube page apparently. Yeah, did you all know that? How many people knew that? Notice my hand's not up either. Yeah.
And please tell your friends about this event.
Yeah.
Yeah. Take photographs, share it on social media, let everybody know this is the network to be part of. Boom.
That's the marketing department. All right, take care, guys.
Cheers, guys. Bye.
Take care. Be careful out there. Yeah, bye-bye.